Good day to you all, and welcome to this wonderful and special event. This special event is for you all to recognise what is truly happening in the world. That is the beautiful coronation of myself, and my royal court is joining me for this beautiful celebration. You are all, of course, the wonderful heathens and others that put this show together and make it wonderful. So, without further ado, let's enjoy my coronation. Let's celebrate my royal court, because the show is starting right now. Hello, wonderful people that have decided to join me here for this magnificent occasion. I have, of course, with me Queen Phoebe, my royal court of Princess Emma. Please say hello to the wonderful people who are watching.
Hello.
Hello. And to Lord Gilliver, could you please introduce yourself to the awaiting masses?
You're going to use that voice all the way through, are you, Phoebe?
Look, Lord Gilliver, I have warned you about this. You shall introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Richard.
And Viscount Firth, if you could please introduce yourself to the waiting masses, that would be very much appreciated.
Hello, I am Dr. Rich, FG Viscount Firth. I was told to dress regally, so I put my Queen t-shirt on.
But everybody, you should all be welcomed back to this show, which is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 non-profit organisation dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. Unlike the actual monarchy, which is for the fusion of government and religion, no critical thinking, the Church of England, and absolutely nothing else. So, without further ado, I would like us all to go and be reminded that this is season 22, episode 18 of the Non-Profits, and it was recorded in the wee hours of the morning by us Brits on, for us Brits, the 4th of May, but for everyone else in the world, on a real time zone, the 3rd of May. So without further ado, let's get on with this show and move swiftly into our first segment.
Permission to speak,
Permission
Your
is
Majesty.
granted to you, Princess Emma. You may begin.
Thank you, Your Majesty. I'm not going to do the voice all night because it'll get annoying. I don't have the ego to make it work. Okay, the first segment tonight is based on an article from the Religious News Service, written by Catherine Pepinster on April 27th, 2023. This is how King Charles's coronation will be unlike any seen in England. Which, and I think we probably all thought the same thing when we first saw this, which is, yeah, duh. Because the last coronation was 70 years ago. And things do change in a country in that time. I've seen a number of articles that say a similar thing. It feels a little redundant to me. I will say, I thought it would be quite weird and weirder if we performed a ceremony exactly the same as it had been hundreds of years in the past. But no, the point is this. The point is that there are all these lovely modern trappings of the ceremony this time. We're going to have some Gaelic hymns, some Welsh Gaelic and some Scottish Gaelic hymns, and Charles himself is going to say a prayer. In my opinion, doesn't do very much to modernize such an archaic ceremony. But then that is to be expected of celebrating such an archaic institution. The other thing that stood out to me about this particular article is that there's a lovely picture of some folks hard at work, very delicately repainting with a little brush this lamppost. And I thought, goodness me, what a tremendous waste of time and money. The estimated cost, according to various sources, to the taxpayer, of course, for the whole coronation is going to be about £100 million. And I just wonder how many of our visiting friends and the royalty that are seeing are going to notice if a fleck of paint is chipped off a lamppost or something like that. There's an infuriating disconnect between the actual people of our fine nation and the system upholding the monarchy when, you know, the public viewer struggling with spiraling energy bills and in the midst of a cost of living crisis are asked politely to cry out their allegiance to the crown during this gold-plated party of pointlessness. So I'm sure the Queen has thoughts. Would you care to weigh in, Your Majesty?
Oh, yes, I would, because when you said £100 million, I thought that was just my energy bill for the last quarter and not the actual cost of this whole ceremony, you see. But when they do say that this is a ceremony like no other, of course it's a ceremony like no other. We're in the 21st century, and a man who flopped out of a fanny out of pure luck and happenstance is now having his hat, like this one, which I shall now remove because he's having his put on, and I don't want to be associated with him anymore. He's having his hat put on whilst he sits in a seat next to his mistress, and his mistress gets to now be called the Queen. I don't like it because I'm the only Queen around these parts. But when we start talking about it's a ceremony like no other, and it's this, that, and the other, what the bloody hell were you expecting? It's a coronation of a king in the 21st century, 70 years after his mother was coronated. Hello? The world has changed. Congratulations, you looked out of a window and went, oh, wait, it's not 1953 anymore. What were people expecting? Oh, it's a ceremony like no other. It's a this, it's a that, it's this. Look, mate. You're walking into a building whilst a man wearing a dress wanders up with a hat that you're sat in a chair on, sticks it on your head, and you say some nice words whilst you hold a couple of ornaments. There's not much more I can say about it. Hello? This is what we're doing in this country. And Lord Gilliver would like to, wrest these from me because he clearly believes in it all.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I think the thing for me with this was the part where it said that it was going to be, something quite unique. And if you take a snapshot in history of any kind of coronation, it's a unique place in history, and there's lots of things gone before it which make it that way. I think the point this article was trying to make is that there's been an 11% drop in kind of people who said they were Christians on the last census, and other faiths, including Islam, Judaism, and Hinduism and Sikhism, grew by 100,000 adherents in a decade. So the most significant difference was that those who had no religion increased by 8.5 million. So I think, like, in real terms, that's a third of the population where it's kind of gone up. So despite all this, the coronation remains a Church of England ceremony. And when Charles, because we still have the kind of integration of things in this country, Charles became the head of the Church of England when he became king. And it's all very kind of aloof and separate to the kind of real life Britain, and it's pomp and ceremony for the sake of pomp and ceremony. Viscount Firth, what are your thoughts?
The modernisation thing makes me laugh. Frankly, if they really want to modernise it in the way the royal family likes to modernise these things, Elton John should be playing them in. Otherwise, what are they doing? Get a real queen in there, eh? But no,
well, thank you. You have recognised my status.
Elton, is that you?
Look, if I'm Elton John, I have gender identity issues.
But yeah. The whole idea, though, that it's being modernised. I mean, in some ways, of course, it's being modernised. We're watching it on colour televisions through streaming services. Okay, I'm trying to think of other ways it's actually being modernised. Oh, we may give a side mention to religions that aren't Protestant and Church of England. Maybe you'll say, yeah, there's some other people. And there are people with none, which is my favourite little throwaway. But other than that, it's still, like you say, a man going up to a bloke in a dress who's got a pour oil on his head that gives him magical properties to be boss. And it's like, okay, if you say so. And I also, generally have other issues with soon to be homeopath in chief, but that's a whole other story. But
Look,
it's not.
All I can say is, if Family Dr. Ben was around here, he would rip into the homeopathy aspect of that.
Oh yeah,
And I think that is a valid point, because we're supposed to be venerating this man as if he's God's chosen anointed one, placed here as the true ruler of this nation, etc., etc., etc. But do they honestly think we are just mugs in this day and age? I mean, the article was very careful with its language. Until at one point, it did actually let the mask slip entirely, when it did just refer to it as a sect.
Yeah.
At one point, it does just refer to it as the Anglican sect.
Yes.
Which is just an accurate description of, Anglicanism, because it was just, hey, my name's Henry. I want to kill my wife. Oh, I can't do that. The church don't like that. Okay, goodbye, Pope.
Yeah.
I think it shows how out of touch they are with people when the church in particular, where they've asked, they've issued a book of prayers and they've asked for people to pray for the king, the nation, and the world. So, anybody really thinks that prayers actually work in this day and age? We've gone beyond the kind of 1970s now, when that sort of thing was like really dying out and like moved forward, and we're in a technological age now, what I like to call the future, and we shouldn't be doing that kind of thing anymore.
Oh, dear.
Yeah,
as if to make things any more obvious, we had a member of the royal family that's known as the Princess Royal turn around and say, I don't sound like the sound of this slimmed-down monarchy, which is polite aristocracy way of going, they want to get rid of us, they want to get rid of us.
Oh, poor Princess Anne down at the dole queue on Wednesday, eh? That's a sight to see. But I can ride a horse. Yeah.
But here's the thing: she's not in the dole queue. She's the one managing the dole queue, saying, "Next, please."
I met her once.
My condolences.
Yeah, it was. She basically tried to lecture an expert in autism about what autism is in front of me, and it was quite a moment. This like professor of autism might know a little bit more than you. Yes, he was a minion, of course. And modernized. I want to know: can I actually sit in a VR headset at the ceremony? Yeah, I mean, it's all about modernizing. That'd be awesome. I just want to take all the sights and sounds and look around and see who's misbehaving, see if any of the young royals are bored and picking their nose like they were the other things that have gone on. Because that'd be more entertaining than watching the actual thing, I'm sure.
But what I would say is that give them some credit. These individuals did not choose this position, and it has been foisted upon them by circumstance and happenstance. And whilst we, as people, may satirize them as individuals, we need to not forget the humanity behind all this. That they are just products, in a way, of an institution that won't really let them go. And we did see with the ginger one, as we shall call him, when he, raised some hell. And shall we call it the Virgin Islands one, when he raised some hell as well. Now, the institution really doesn't like that. The institution will just spit you back out. So, whilst we may take the mickey out of the ceremony itself, I'm not sure the actual humans that are going through this really have that much of a say in it. And I think that's the scariest part of it, Princess Emma.
Yes, I suppose so. I always think it must be. It would be very hard to go through your life having trumpets play when you walk into rooms and people, bow down and everybody looks nervous and frightened around you and all the walls are repainted before you enter a room. I think it'd be very hard to go through life like that and come out the other end a regular human being. So I appreciate the disconnect is, there's reason behind it.
I mean, we just have to look at Lady Diana Spencer. Went in there and she wasn't part of that institution. But you could clearly see that the institution tried and in the end did crack her into little pieces to try to mold her into this portion of the institution that was going to be the person sat on the seat next to the man getting the hat put on by the man in the dress. But that didn't happen because, for one reason or another, and I think the institution is partly to blame here, the institution said, we will be the institution and we will be here forever, because the institution itself has a level of inherent arrogance that believes that it cannot be changed. It cannot be done away with. It cannot be anything else but the institution, and the institution will be here forever, since the kingdoms of England were unified in something like the 8th century, and the kingdom of Wessex and the kingdom of Sussex and the kingdom of Kent and Mercia and Cumbria and all these other places all unified. And then a man named Bill came over from, France and went, "Way!" And ever since then, I think that the institution itself has never actually had questioning like it has today. And I think that scares the institution. And I think when the institution gets scared, it goes back into what it's comfortable with. And the article does one thing. It assumes that we all accept this as standard, that we all accept this as normal. Whereas it misses the point, whereas if it was a truly unique change, there would be genuine questioning of, well, why are we doing this? Why is there this monarch thing? Why is there this hat ceremony? As opposed to going, well, we're doing the hat ceremony differently, so therefore it's changed.
Yeah.
And I think that the thing is, this change that the article is pushing is all about these other faiths coming in. And I don't know what that's going to do for the Church of England itself. Is that going to encourage debate about its future or it in its institution? But I don't think it's going to have any lasting effect on the coronation itself. And I think after this, largely, Britons will fall back into their kind of various belief systems or apathy, and religion will continue to inform British government as it always has done.
Yeah.
But what I can see is people will get fed up with this very soon. We haven't had one of these for 70 years, so therefore this is a bit of a novelty. But I can't see Charlie Boy hanging around on the throne much more than 15, 20 years. So we're going to have Bill come along. And then Bill's going to be in his 50s, 60s. And then Bill's going to last about 15, 20 years. And then the next one's going to come along. And we're going to have about 15. And then we're going to keep doing this on a semi-regular basis. People are going to go, in my lifetime, we've spent nearly £1 billion on this. For what?
Yeah. On another angle, I'm actually surprised that Charles actually became king. I was waiting for him to say, no, I don't want it. I want to continue writing my letters and to try and influence government, which I won't be allowed to do as soon as I'm king. And I'm going to pass it on to Billy Boy, and he can be King Billy Boy. And I will carry on being just an agitator behind the scenes who writes lots and lots of letters every day and says we should have homeopathy in the NHS and things like that, which are really bad. Although, to be fair to him, he was ahead of the curve when it came to global warming. He was talking about that in the 70s.
And he was also ahead of the curve on organic farming as well.
Yeah.
He was laughed at when he started doing his organic farms. But, I think he may have found too many black spiders on his farms, and they may have, taken, and run away with him. But I just want to ask this one question to the panel. Do you believe this is a part of Britain and we just can't get away from?
No. I think it's like anything. When it is there and it's a thing, you feel like it can't change. I mean, I've lived in houses like that. When I lived in a bedsit when I was in my 20s, it was like, I'm never getting out of this room. But you can change things. You can move on and do other things. And it's the same with the monarchy. We can move on and do something else. We can make them like the Spanish monarchy, or we can get rid of them completely. It can be done. It's just like we haven't.
Yeah, sufficient people have started to question it. I think the article said something like or it might have been a different article I read that I'm confusing with it, but I think I saw something like 46% of, the public polled just didn't care, just were apathetic towards the coronation. I think enough people have been apathetic for long enough that we could quite easily move away from the monarchy, and most people probably wouldn't notice. There would be traditionalists that would feel a bit hard done by, but otherwise I don't think it would even make a massive difference, to be honest, except for hopefully financially in a positive way.
Yeah, and I think I think there's two sides to this. One is the fact that we could, for a lot of people, we could just do away with them and the whole institution and nobody would notice. And then we've got the kind of article side of it, which is making big deals about very, very small changes. And, Emma touched on some of them at the kind of the top of the article, but some of the changes been planned. The prominent role of female clergy, the king praying aloud. Wow, he's going to do it so people can hear. Leaders from other faiths having an active role, the representation of other British languages in the form of Welsh and Scottish and Irish Gaelic, and the active role of the public. This is the best bit. The active role of the public, like some kind of interactive TV game where we're being asked to cry out and swear allegiance to the king all in one voice at the same time. No.
Hang on. I will stop you there now. If you are watching this broadcast and if you are on this panel, could you all please raise yourselves from your seats and repeat after me? I do hereby pledge and swear allegiance to the true heathen of them all, Queen Phoebe, the defender of questioning and skepticism, and the one true atheist. I, insert name here, please, do hereby affirm and or swear that I shall bear true allegiance to Queen Phoebe and her court of successors, Princess Emma, Lord Gilliver, and Viscount Firth. So help me, flying spaghetti monster.
For clarity, this is vodka.
If I were at such an age where I could get out of my seat without my body making untoward noises, I would surely do it.
But to say the following: God save the Queen, insert songline here that I'm not going to repeat. It's almost like punk never happened.
Mm-hmm.
I do have to just say this about all this. I look at all of this from somebody who has a lot of different backgrounds within me. And I just have to say this. Huh? People travel across the world, allegedly, for this as their tourism. And a lot of the people that are going to be watching this are from that part of the world where apparently they all come to this bare isle and say, this is why we're here. Charlie Boy and Camilla. Previous to that, Liz and Phil. Previous to that, George and Liz. Previous to that, Edward and Wallace. Previous to that, George and somebody else. Previous to that, someone and someone else. Previous to that, I don't buy it. I just don't buy this nonsense. I buy that, yes, it's wonderful history to have all these buildings and stuff, but I just don't buy that people are coming here to see Charlie Boy and his mistress. I don't buy that people are coming here to see Liz and her cousin. I just don't buy that. I think that is one of the biggest loads of hokum that we have been fed as this nonsensical argument to not question the monarchy because people believe this rubbish, absolute rubbish, that it brings in tourism pounds to the exchequer and to the economy, which is an absolute load of hogwash because the buildings would still be there, the history would still be there if you got rid of the people. And you just wouldn't have all these people anymore, but you'd still have all their history. The Tower of London isn't going to crumble overnight because we've got rid of the institution of the crown. It's just not going to happen. So we can turn around and we can say this is a wonderful, modern, changing ceremony, but it's not modern, it's not changing, it's more of the same. It's more of the absolute nonsense that we have been living with in this country for 1,000 years. And I'd like to thank our new and veteran viewers for helping us get over 12,000 subscribers on this channel. So, if you are watching this and you are not yet subscribed to our channel, why the bloody hell aren't you? I, as Queen Phoebe, command you to subscribe now. I command you, by the power vested in me by the flying spaghetti monster, to subscribe now.
Smooth and professional transition there, Phoebe.
Best segue ever.
And once you have subscribed, please hit that like button and ring that bell, or else I will be going full campanology on you in your local church and or nearest religious building. But remember, the Non-Profits episodes always premiere at 3 p.m. Central Time on the Non-Profits channel. Or if you're in the real world, 9 p.m. UK time. Unless, of course, we've changed time zones. And then it's either 8 p.m. or 10 p.m., depending on which way we've gone. Bloody daylight savings time. Savings? I don't know. Anyway. But once you have done that and you enjoy what you're seeing here, you must, I command you all, there is a knighthood in it for the person who does the most shares and others to the links on our channel, with your friends, family, and other royal members of your regal court, who can then share it with their minions and their underlings and their subjects, especially their maids and their butlers and their cooks and those who generally upkeep their mansions. But are you aware that the Atheist Community of Austin has another YouTube channel that you should be checking out? This is called the Atheist Experience Network. And this is definitely an experience that we're going through here, where you can find all of the other ACA shows in podcast form. That being Talk Heathen, where a certain person on this panel is now a producer. So everybody, a nice round of applause to Lord Gilliver, who is now a producer on that show. Hey! But
Thank you.
in more serious times, we now have every single episode of every single ACA show floating around there. You can go and see other shows like the now archived Secular Sexuality, where you can see more of me. But if you don't like me, you can, check out Talk Heathen, because they've never put me on that show yet. But, oh well. We shall now talk about the true cross, because I am no longer cross with this anymore. So, Lord Gilliver, could you please talk to us about pieces of wood?
Yeah, just before I do that, for the just for the benefit of the viewers at home, you are not watching Alice in Wonderland. This is really happening. This next article comes from the Telegraph, and it was published on the 19th of April 2023 by Victoria Ward, India McTaggart, and Dominic Nicholls. The article tells us that Pope Francis has presented King Charles with two fragments of the true cross as a personal gift, which is claimed to have been used in the crucifixion of Jesus to mark his coronation in what the article claims is a significant ecumenical gesture. Before we go into the bones of the article, because I have a lot to say on this one, I have a feeling so will our learned historian friend, Rich Brits number 2. So I'm going to throw it open to the panel before I give a little but very important history lesson. So, Dr. Firth.
Well, I'm going to wait before I say anything substantive until after the history lesson, so that I don't give it twice. I'm just... I don't know. The whole, I don't know if anybody's ever seen the original The Blackadder series, and there's a wonderful sketch in that in which Baldric, who in that series is really streetwise and together, Blackadder has become the Archbishop of Canterbury, and he's showing him all the relics that they can sell. And Percy comes out with a finger of our Lord that he spent 30 pieces of silver on, and he says, "Baldric, you look amazed." And Baldric says, "Yeah, I thought they only came in boxes of 10." And that's kind of exactly what I think about this. It's just, why we still got relics? What on earth makes them think that's that piece of wood that is from the true cross? The cross that apparently Saladin nicked back in 1187 and never gave back. So where did this bit come from anyway? It's just the most ridiculous thing. And this Protestant king, a guy who his Protestant belief, is based on a bloke who wrote 95 theses that basically, to sum up, says selling stuff for God is crap, and he's like getting stuff. It just, I cannot quite understand why this matters. Why the headline isn't "King gets bitter wood for present." That's it. Oh Christ!
I don't think King takes wood is a very good headline for the coronation.
King takes wood, gets splinters. That'd be a good one.
Italian man goes to English man. Got wood.
Yeah. Man in dress gives King wood. That would be more entertaining. But no, instead, it's the idea that there's an essence on this thing that came from Christ himself when he died on the cross. Not that cross. Definitely not that cross. And so somehow he will be imbued with Christ dying or something because he's got his bitter wood. I make it into a pencil personally. That may have some practical use, but anyway, enough.
All right, shall I jump in? I'll.
Yeah, Emma.
I mean, I had a very similar take, which is again
Vodka.
just sort of like, I think this is going to be the same because we're just talking about the coronation. Our response to every article is going to be like, why?
Yeah.
Why are we still doing this? Yeah, I still think this is the bit of cross, the true cross, is less weird than the stone of destiny that is being carted down from Edinburgh. We love our old bits of stone and wood. I thought it's nice of the Pope to give Charlie a gift for his big day, but it feels like it throws a stone in the hole. It's such a modern ceremony plan. It's like, yeah, the Viscount mentioned, it's the true cross is as true as the Shroud of Turin, and it's kind of, I find it's sort of embarrassing that we're treating this as a thing, as like a real thing. It's like it's sort of highlighted to me reading this one of my least favorite aspects of this mainstream religion like this, which is just this intertwining into real life and desperately clinging on to just superstition, just rubbish old superstition, irrespective of the truth, and just that it's the king and the Pope that legitimizes these artifacts in a way that is preposterous. It's not Indiana Jones, it's real life, I will say the article also mentioned the Big Help Out very, very briefly. It didn't say anything about what it was, but I thought it was good to shout that out, because the Big Help Out is a thing that, again, hasn't had enough media attention, but it's this sort of nice, trying to use the coronation to make
the kind
people...
of thing your gran would approve of.
Your gran would love it. It's a big thing. They've got charities and organizations and individuals involved, and you go and hang out with an elderly neighbor, or bring someone some groceries, or you volunteer for a charity for a day or something like that. And I think it's lovely and tragic that this is like the only time I've seen it mentioned in any news I've read in like the last couple of weeks about the coronation. It's like one line about it that doesn't say what it actually is. And again, though, I kind of felt it's so nice to encourage people to give in your local community. It's such a good thing. But again, the very existence of this makes me furious, because we're spending 100 million taxpayer pounds on the big party, and couldn't Charles just not have the big party, and then we wouldn't need to make people who are the everyday man on the street who is struggling perform all this charity work to prop up people in poverty. Maybe we just don't need to repaint all the lampposts,
But yes, speaking of tragedy, let's not lose sight of what's actually happening here. What we have in the article is we have two small pieces of wood, which have now been combined into a large chunk of metal, where the metal is now shaped like what the original piece of wood was allegedly shaped like within the larger piece of metal. Also, that the shape of the metal represents the piece of wood that's now in the metal. This is just bonkers. A man in Italy has decided to give a man in England two small fragments of a murder weapon. Think about this for a second. A man in Italy has gone. I'm not actually in Italy. I'm in a place called Vatican, which is actually in the capital city of Italy. And here, I've heard you're having a hat ceremony. Have some murder weapon. And the man then goes, yeah, that's brilliant. That's wonderful.
It's like
I
gifting.
know. I'm going to put this in some hunks of metal. And I'm going to parade it around my country. And everyone's going to fall all over themselves. Isn't that magical? What a colossal farce!
Yeah, it's like giving JFK Jr. some bits of rifle in the Perspex box as a gift. There you go. Isn't that wonderful?
And on that wonderful note, it is time that we all sit down with a nice hot mug of tea and listen to the history lesson from Lord Gilliver.
Yeah, before I go into the history of the True Cross itself, I just want to comment on something Emma said about the Stone of Destiny. I find it ironic that it's been brought down for the coronation when the English bloody nicked it off us in the first place. But anyway, that aside, okay, so let's have a history lesson. Let's go back in time. So here's the thing with this. It's been seen as an important gesture. And for those of faith, it really is an important gesture. They genuinely see something in this. But we've got to take one very, very important thing into account about this. It's all utter bollocks. There are no early accounts of the preservation of the cross in the fledgling church. And when I say none, I'm not doing an interpretation thing where someone could have been the cross, but was referred to in another way. We're not quite sure. There were quite literally zero. So here is how this all came about. A bishop had a dream. He wanted to recreate the Christian Holy Land with Jerusalem as the primary focus and centre. So since 66 of the Common Era, the former Jerusalem had become a place of no real significance and adopted a Roman name. It was home to only a moderate number of Christians and was seen somewhat as a bit of a provincial backwater. It wasn't until the Council of Nicaea in 325 where the Bishop of Jerusalem caught Constantine's attention with some epic self-promotion and was sent forth with the instruction to build churches. It wasn't long after this that the claim started circulating without, it has to be said, any corroborative evidence that the wood of the true cross had been found there. Then another 25 years passed in a very Lord of the Rings fashion, in the blink of an eye. And then the next Bishop of Jerusalem, Bishop Cyril, started the persistent rumour that the cross had actually been found in the year 327, almost 300 years after the crucifixion, by the Empress Helena, Constantine's mum, during a state visit. This very, very, very unlikely event, because we've got no records from the time of the visit stating that the cross was found, gave Jerusalem credibility as a centre of pilgrimage, which, although slow to begin, and that was largely due to the apathy of the surrounding bishops, so that the other Christians in the area didn't even believe this thing at the time. That has now continued to this day. The clever promotion of Jerusalem by the bishop and the other bishop not only legitimized the former rather unimportant state of Jerusalem in Christianity, but it was also during this period that the cross first started being used as jewelry and in artwork outside of religious texts, which were all for sale, of course. It could also be argued that this is the source of relics that became so prevalent in later Christianity, which the good doctor touched upon earlier, and so important in the future of Christianity as a movement, including the Protestant Reformation. So there you have it. This true cross, presented to the king by the Pope, is a very early form of clever propaganda and has no actual historical verification. Did, however, do wonders for Jerusalem's tourist trade. Anyway, now we've realised it's all a load of old poo, let's get back to the article.
What I would say is that we are the non-profits. So any money that is made from the sale of crosses will be fed back into the charitable works of the atheist community of Austin, a 501c3 organization. So, we don't make a profit because we are the non-profits.
Yes.
Yeah. As I touched on there, to finish the history lesson, as I touched on earlier, in 1187, there was a massive battle in the Third Crusade, and Saladin took that very not cross off the Crusaders and never gave it back. It was never seen again. So even if there's a cross that they call the one true cross, they haven't got it anyway. It disappeared 1,000 years ago and hasn't been seen since. So it's all very, very odd.
We don't even have the cross that we never had.
No,
we don't
even
have the cross that we
non-cross.
never had.
You should be cross about that. You should be very cross that you don't have the cross that we're not finding anymore. Because
Yeah.
I'm cross that this cross has now crossed paths with other crosses and is now crossed off my list.
I think there's something very important in all this, and from the point of view of skepticism, and I'm almost certain that everybody involved in this knows the history of these fragments of wood, but no one wants to say anything because it's a symbol. It's a symbol of the larger institution, and this right here is where skepticism is vitally important, because even if you believe this to be a piece of the true cross, you have no good reason to do so. So even if you believe wholeheartedly that Christianity is true, there is nothing in the history of this that suggests that it is authentic. And there's something that I found absolutely disgusting when I was looking at this. I really, really did. And that's related to skepticism. So I'm going to give you a couple of headlines I found related to this story. The Metro says, Charles's coronation to feature shards of the true cross given to him by the Pope. The Daily Mail said, Pope gives 2 fragments of the cross Jesus cried was crucified on to King Charles. The Independent said, for the man who has everything, Pope gives King Charles 2 shards of the true cross. In fact, the first 2 pages of results that I got contain 15 separate headlines, all from different sources, which all referred to this as being from the true cross of Jesus' crucifixion. And this is when we've got zero evidence to corroborate the claim, and a good deal suggest it was a manufactured marketing ploy. So this genuinely makes me sad. It makes me angry that not one single source I found described the circumstances in which the fragments came into history and cast doubt on their authenticity.
Okay. I'm going to play devil's advocate with you because the devil needed to make an appearance in this show. Okay. I believe this is probably not the genuine true cross because the wood would have disintegrated by now. But it is an accurate representation of the imbuement of the true cross, and therefore it is a representation of the true cross. And the fact that it's not a genuine thing, but is a representation, it's good enough for me as a person of, religiosity to go, yes, that's fine. What do you say to the people that say that to you?
Just say it. Just call it what it is. I've no problem with them coming out and saying, look, we haven't got this bit of old wood that some guy was allegedly tortured on. This is a representation of it. This is a symbol, and that's fine. Just say that. Don't make out like it's the actual genuine article, which we've got no evidence for whatsoever. It's simple.
Mm-hmm.
And they could even say, and this would be quite cool from the historian in me to say, we have a wooden cross that survived from the 4th century, and we are giving him a little piece of one of the oldest known examples of the cross in the history of Christianity. Rather than say it's Jesus's, just say it's a cross, it's wooden, and it's survived this long. I was like, wow, what an amazing artifact that is, It doesn't have to be the real one to still be quite cool, because wood doesn't usually survive that long. So
you should have disintegrated a long time ago.
Absolutely. It can be a fascinating piece of history without the dishonor. It's I want to call it dishonesty, but it's that sort of conniving, not outright dishonesty. Nobody's saying
It's the Church of England.
It's
Yeah.
deception. It's
It's
deception.
definitely got Jesus's blood soaked into it. Nobody's saying that, but because it's the Pope and it's the King and it's these two fragments of the true cross, everybody who has a vested interest in that is going to read that at face value and say, "Wow, I can't believe we have that. Can't believe it because we don't."
But also, I can't believe it's not butter. Doesn't mean that I go around, in the same way that people go, well, I can't believe it's not the true cross.
Well, other brands of margarine are available.
But it has somehow managed to make its way from, an Argentine in Vatican City to some block of metal in the UK. And it has arranged its way to, be in London. And a lot of people are going to arrange themselves to be in London, but you don't have to be one of those people that arrange themselves to be in London. So if you can be in the Austin area on Sunday, May the 28th, you should consider joining us in the studio audience at the ACA Free Thought Library for the live broadcasts of Talk Heathen and the Atheist Experience. Doors will open at noon on Sunday, and parking, I tell you this, parking is wherever you can find a legal spot. We are not responsible for your parking tickets. We are not responsible if your car gets a Denver boot. And we are not responsible if you have to go and collect it from your local police precinct. But if you can't make it this month, we are continuing to broadcast live from the library the last Sunday of each month. So keep watching this show and our website, atheist-community.org, for news and information as we expand our in-studio offerings in the near future. But if you can't get enough of us on here, and you can't get enough of the Atheist Experience, which follows this show's premiere, have you ever said to yourself, I love what the ACA do, I love what the ACA creates, but I just wish I could get it, morning, noon, and night? Well, guess what? You can. We've got you covered, you see, because we've got our brand new 24/7 Atheist Experience television live stream. Tune in any time of the day, morning, noon, night, that Friday night where you've drunk too much and you come home and you decide you're going to watch the Atheist Experience. You can do that now. Clips and specials from all 26 seasons of the Atheist Experience. Some of those episodes have apparently been lost, though. And if you have any old episodes of the Atheist Experience dating back to the late 1990s, we would very much love if you could let us have them so that we can add them to the collection and don't lose any of those episodes. You can simply watch your favorite shows, hosts, and discover some hosts you may never have heard of. And you can also visit tiny.cc/AXPTV to join the fun. But don't let that be a missed opportunity for you, because we're not missing opportunities around here anymore as we move on to segment number 3. Where do we go with this?
You, Phoebe.
Yeah, I know that. I'm just taking a deep breath because I just realised what this is. I don't want to miss this opportunity. So according to Emma Mackenzie, who is the Yahoo UK reporter, which is where we got this article from, the Coronation is a large missed opportunity. They talk about it being a missed opportunity for change, for inclusion, etc. And I will agree with them on this. But the article is quite in depth in what it is saying about missed opportunities, but I think it does miss the point slightly when it talks about a missed opportunity of trying to reform the ceremony and stuff, but it does feel very much like they were reaching at points in the article. But we must not lose sight of what we are actually dealing with here. So when people are talking about missed opportunities here, they are entrenching that the opportunity is this ceremony to begin with. But before I miss my opportunity to move on from this, I would like to hear from the rest of the panel on this missed opportunity. So if we can please move to the Viscount to take us into this missed opportunity.
Missed opportunity. Missed opportunity to do what? Pay for his own party. That's a missed opportunity for him to say, I'm a modernising king and I'm a billionaire, so I'm going to pay for my own party because I realise the country is in a bad... Imagine the goodwill that he could have generated if he'd done that. If he just said, we're going to have a coronation. I realise the country is in a bad way at the moment because everyone's skint. And so I'm going to pay for it because I'm kind of rich and I can do that. And I'm going to pay for lots of other charitable things to happen all over the country as well. Lots of other things too. That'd be brilliant. And he missed that opportunity to get fantastic goodwill, even the likes of us, cynical us, Republican us, not that kind of Republican, but Republican us
with a British sense.
With a British sense would have been
Small R.
going, it's hard to criticize that. Okay, fine. Okay, we'll have a party on him. But he hasn't. He said, I'm going to take your money for my party. I know I'm rich, but I don't care. You're going to pay for me to have a party and have the oil stuck on my head. And it's, I genuinely think he's missed a trick there. He really has missed something that would have made his monarchy start in the right way, in a positive way. And as for the article, there's a bit where they talk about, have you seen? I mean, they're really doing amazing things. They've currently got a presence on Facebook. It's like, oh wow, we'll be doing dances on TikTok next. Amazing. Mark
Zuckerberg, eat your heart out.
Yeah, what are we talking about here when we talk about a missed opportunity? But yeah, that's the only missed opportunity I can see, and it's a huge one for billionaire to pay for his own party and make the whole country go, you know what, he's kind of all right. Instead, he's done the opposite, I think. Oh well.
If he had gone to like Westminster Council or City of London Council and said that I want to have a parade, can I get the permissions to close the streets, please? My house is down here. It's at the top of the mall. It addresses Buckingham Palace, the mall, central London. I'd like to close the streets outside of it. I've got my own security. They're going to help me out here. Can I get some permits to, close these streets? I'll pay for it, of course. I'll go through the whole planning process and everything. If he'd done that like every other human being has to do, I would not have cared so much as I do at the moment. Because it would show that he was in touch with, what the country actually is. A bureaucratic mess and a bureaucratic nightmare. Because he would have found out that he wouldn't have, been able to get what he wanted. He would have had to go to appeal at the planning commission. He would have had to have a public inquiry. You would have had objectors screaming from here, there, and everywhere, petitions against him. And he would have, understood what it really felt like to try to organise something in the UK. Whereas instead, the government just went, okay, we'll do it. And I mean, really?
Yeah. Yeah, and just to finish off as well as that, as him just doing it like a normal human being, having his plans stapled to a nicely painted railing for all to check.
Repainted lamppost.
Repainted lamppost, yeah. There are other things he could do that are missed opportunities, like this whole business about us swearing our allegiance to him. Imagine if he said, no, because this was my mother's wishes and how my mother ran the monarchy, I am going to, during this ceremony, swear allegiance to you, that I will serve you, the people. We'd be like, yeah, okay, cool. No, he hasn't. He's going, you need to swear allegiance to me. And then it's like, no, not going to do that. Ever. Not ever. No. So. Anyway, Rich, what do you think?
I'm hung up on the oil. I really am. So I'm gonna do. Should I do the old thing again? Let's go back in time. I know I've done this I've got like historical perspectives quite a lot during this show, but his being anointed with oil is a direct kind of symbolic, as we've been talking about symbolism, gesture to the kind of Old Testament. He is literally the Messiah, because that means anointed one. It's the equivalent of the Greek. Are we ready? Are we all ready? Christos. So Christos and Messiah mean the same thing, and it literally means in the Hebrew Bible, it referred to the king who was anointed with oil at his coronation as a symbol of God's favor. So it is a direct direct lineage to that. And I'm kind of hung up on that just because it's the kind of thing that I like to get hung up on, because I'm a sad little man. Look, this article itself is it seems it was about this guy Robert Hazel, who's professor at UCL's Constitution Unit, and he thinks that the coronation is a missed opportunity to make the event more inclusive to the wider British society. And I'm kind of with everybody else. I think it's just a bit throwaway. You know, there's so much that could be done, which, you know, Rich has touched on really, really well. There's so much that Charles could have done. And this guy's kind of hung up on like a few nothings. You know, I think he seems happy with the changes Charles has made, you know, including ladies for the first time. Women can do something. Oh,
yeah, the House of Lords now has women bishops. From 2015.
Yeah, I know. What a reformer. What a reformer. These tiny little changes. And this guy seems to be like thinking these are good changes. But I also get the impression he'd like to see those changes go a lot further, but within the same vein. And that's the point. You know, let's get out of this vein altogether. If you're going to reform it, fucking reform it, but reform it properly. Don't just make a few changes here and there. Yeah, so I'm going to pass it on to the good princess to have her say on this.
Thank you, Lord Gilliver. Yeah, I mean, I feel the same kind of way. It's like it feels a little bit pointless to sort of make the event more inclusive when the people that are being included are the ones that are apathetic to it in the first place. You know, like people of different faiths, people who don't have faith. Hooray, we're more represented. I'm not going to be watching it anyway because I think the entire event could be done away with. So I'm not particularly moved by these minor changes. I'd rather not have the coronation at all. Like it's as simple as that. It just feels like a waste of time.
But I think we're all looking at this the wrong way. We're looking at the wrong kind of missed opportunity here. We're looking at this as where, oh look, it's wonderful changes. If you're going to do this thing, do it properly. Go back to tradition. Go and do it with over-the-top nonsense. Don't try and modernise anything. Go back to the way that it was. Like, you know, imperial Dunbars in India. That's doing it properly. There's missed opportunity.
I demand elephants in the street of London.
There you go. This is the missed opportunity. It's like, if you're going to do this thing, don't tinker at the edges. You've got to go to the extreme. You either go back to tradition and you go all in, whole hog, and you go, yes, let's really embrace this, what it is, as this traditional thing where I'm wandering through the streets like a medieval thief that I now have control of and all these things. Or you go down the other extreme and you go, yeah, I'll pay for it myself. I'll staple my plans to the nearest fence post and I'll have Westminster Council and the objectors and the City of London Court of Common People all, you know, decide that they're going to, you know, scrutinise my plans and have committee hearing after committee hearing, and I'm going to have to hire a legal team to go and make representations on my behalf. Do it properly. None of this middle of the road nonsense of where we're going, oh dear, I've tinkered at the edges, and you know, I've got some other faiths, some people from Judaism, from Buddhism, from Islam. They're all going to be here as well. I'm going to say some words, but look, mate, you're just, you know, rehashing the same nonsense that this country's been used to from you for, you know, the last 70 odd years. Give it up, mate. Just give it up. Do it properly or go home. That's the missed opportunity we've got around these parts.
I never ever thought I'd hear the kind of equivalent phrase to go hard or go home referring to the King's coronation.
We're back to his wood again.
No.
Oh.
But,
I mean,
yeah.
if if we're not going to get everybody in the empire to come and give him tribute, then what kind of a ceremony is this anyway? I mean, do we have anybody in the empire anymore?
I mean, we could be inviting people from our Commonwealth realms in Papua New Guinea, Australia, New Zealand. We could be inviting some Canadians to come over, or we could be inviting some of our possessions in the Caribbean to come over. But we're just not doing that. Well, Barbados recently told us we could go stick the monarchy, which, topic for another time. But yeah, I agree with what Viscount Firth said. Well, why aren't we having, this being what it actually is? It's not just the coronation of the King of England here. It's a coronation of the King of England and Scotland and the Crown of Ireland, representing in Northern Ireland, and the Commonwealth realms.
Yeah.
Do not forget that. There are Commonwealth realms that are still floating around out there on the other side of the world, a long way away from us. And that is always lost in these things. And that's what's being missed here as well. It's a very Anglocentric thing that's happening here. The King of England is being coronated in England by the head of the Church of England. When this person rules over an awful lot of parts of the world that, quite frankly, have every right to go, where the bloody hell is our representation?
Yeah.
And if you want to make representations to us, you can become a member of the channel for as little as 99 cents a month. Click the join button below, and this will give you access to the special chat emojis. And you will also be immune from that slow mode of chat, so you can keep those representations coming to us when everyone else has to slow down. And if you like what you see here, we have merchandise. Things like crowns, I hope. Visit tiny.cc/merch-ACA, and every month there is a special edition item that you can only get for that month. And as it's the first week of the month, you can get the new one, as you can see on your screen right now. If you're listening to this on the podcast, well, you can't see it, but that's on you. All ACA shows feature a special limited edition item, so be sure to collect them all. Let's move to our final part of the proceedings with Viscount Firth.
Okay, right. Well, where do I begin with this one? This is called Charlie Done Good, I think, as well as other things. Back in the days of the transatlantic slavery, if you were anybody of any means, you had shares in enslavement because it was a good money spinner, unfortunately. The same way a lot of rich people today have shares in oil and gas and so on companies, even Russian ones, because it makes a lot of money. And it turns out one particular rich family had £1,000 worth of shares. Now, £1,000 back then is lots. It's a lot of money now, and a great deal of money. And they had it with Edward Colston. And if you know that name, you may be British and you may remember a statue being pulled over and thrown into some water. And he was a slaver. And King William III, it turns out, had a contract for this £1,000 worth of slave shares. Now, to me, it's no surprise. This is my year. I study the early modern and slightly later, and everybody with means had money in the transatlantic slave trade because, as I say, it was a money spinner. But to be fair to King Charles, he has said he wants it investigating fully and the truth to come out, and the genuine truth, no matter how ugly it is, to be represented and to be looked into. And that they support a research project co-sponsored by the historic royal palaces. Now, I think that's great. And actually, for those people out there who are amazed by that, because we know there are a lot of people watching this from the other side of the Atlantic, the old colony, and you colonials seem to have this thing where some of you are arguing that that you shouldn't look at bad parts of your own history because it might be really upsetting. So to find out that our king has gone, yeah, well, it's pretty awful. Let's have a look and see what happened. I think you should go to your history-resistant friends and use that as an example of why actually looking at the bad things your country did is patriotism. It's working things through. It's admitting mistakes. But yeah, there's more to admitting mistakes than just saying please investigate it. There are other issues which I'm going to let the rest of my panel talk about. So Princess Emma, what do you think about Charlie and his historical loveness?
I think it's a good thing. It's a good beginning. It does highlight one of the problems that me and my chums who share the same kind of, Republican skeptical views as me have had lately, a sort of moral quandary, which is that, we were talking about the House of Lords briefly earlier, fundamentally against these institutions. At times, they seem to be the only ones advocating for the right thing in opposition to our government. And I think that's interesting because Rishi Rich, our lovely PM, only this week was asked about reparations and if he would finally be the one to give an apology for the UK's part in the slave trade. And he said no. He said, no, we don't want to talk about that. We got other stuff going on and it's a bit awkward in it. So let's not. So again, we have this institution that we've been complaining about this whole night, and I've been ragging on and going, why, is actually holding us to more account than the government is, which is a bit sort of sad. Although I think it's a good thing. I do think there's an element of it should be more of an about time sort of situation rather than something to be overly praised, because I just saw a new play version of To Kill a Mockingbird, and they tackled some of the sort of white saviorism in this very good way, where they basically gave one of the characters of color the opportunity to stand up to the white savior character and say, why are you expecting me to be grateful for you doing basically the right thing? Which is sort of how I feel about the reparations situation. We shouldn't be crawling on our knees saying, isn't he a wonderful man for wanting to investigate the royal family's history of slavery? It's more like, yeah, good. I mean, we should have done that a long time ago. So thanks. And that's kind of that's kind of about my limit on it. Lord Gilliver, perhaps you would like to take over.
Yeah, I think this expression of support by Charlie Baby, it sounds positive, and it is positive, but the researchers themselves highlight that a full team of fully resourced researchers and forensic accountants would be needed to fully investigate the history and legacy of slavery and colonialism. So in short, a royal commission, and that's not happening. So while it's as our good friend Cynthia would say, step in the right direction, it's a tiny little step, and you could stretch your leg out a little bit further because you've got the power to do so, and you've got the records. So let the investigators go in and give them the finances to do a proper research job on this, rather than the bare minimum they are doing. Rich looks like he wants to interject and disagree with me. Please do.
I was just going to say, I can tell you right now, I could name for you a dozen Cambridge and Oxford historians who are salivating to get into those documents, and they will get the funding from their very rich colleges to get their documents, and they really will turn them over and rip them to shreds and put them back together. So come back in 3 years and you will have a paper published that is detailed about this, I guarantee you. And I feel that we need a huge team of people doing all this. Not really. You just need a few clued up economic historians working with a couple of historians of enslavement, and you crack it. So don't worry about that so much, because I could, a shout out to Elizabeth for one. She'll be like, oh yeah. So this is this is bread and butter to your sort of red brick university. We like shooting things, stories, historians. So they'll be.
But
They'll be all over it.
just to jump in here, we have a very odd situation in UK history here. So we're talking about payments of financial compensation to those who were the victims. Whereas Britain did the absolute opposite to get rid of the slave trade. So the way that Britain got rid of the slave trade was it effectively purchased all of the slaves and went, there you go, you're now free. And it was about 25% of British GDP at the time that was used in order to purchase these things. And it took us until the year 2015, I repeat, 2015, over 300 years later, to pay off this bond. And it was the previous Chancellor, George Osborne, who finished those perpetuity bonds that also included debt from the South Sea bubble crash of like the 1690s. But I'm sure I've got that date wrong. But this is the level of debt that we were still carrying around from slavery in 2015. And that, in and of itself, should tell you a lot about how the institution of the UK views itself. It doesn't view itself as someone who has done anything wrong here. It just views itself as someone who has done. We did that. What do you want from us? But I would like to draw a comparison here to another monarch. This being Kaiser Bill. And we have to be very careful that when we start talking about reparations, we don't do what the Allies did at the end of World War I and make out that the ordinary person who had nothing to do with it is being held responsible. Because what we did as the Allied powers who won World War I, we said, you, the ordinary German, are guilty of what your monarch did. And you will be paying debts forever. And that can cause a lot of resentment. And we need to be very careful that we don't go down this path of saying to the ordinary Briton who had nothing to do with it, who may have migrated to this country from other countries, you know what? You're responsible for what people were doing 450 years ago. And I don't quite think that's the right way to be going about it. So who wants to, challenge me on that point? Somebody.
I agree mostly, to be honest. I think we have to be very careful with things like that because, bad things happen, like Hitler. He was a bit dodgy.
It was the tash, wasn't it?
Yeah. The chaplain could carry it. He couldn't. But it's I think you have to be careful. And there's another elephant in the room in that there is another form of financial reparations which we as a planet really need to think about right now, which makes it's like, where does the money go? And that is to do with climate change. That's to do with countries, particularly those in the global south, who are already suffering the worst of climate change and had little to nothing to do with causing the damn thing. And they're getting the worst brunt of it. And those people need some money from the rich nations as well, in some form or other, to help them not disappear, or to relocate, or to rebuild their cities as they disappear under the water. And I wonder how we can make the money stretch to everybody all the time. Now, ironically, outside the United States, a lot of the places that are affected by climate change are also post-colonial parts of the world. And so there may be some way we can kind of mix this together in a wonderful bundle to say, yeah, we came and we robbed your stuff and then we screwed the planet up too. Yay.
Hey,
sorry.
Maldives, we like you now.
Yeah,
Maldives, you're sinking and you're getting flooded. But, that empire that you had, we're here to help.
Yeah,
You know,
but how do you do that? I mean, I know that every single time there is a COP, the big thing is those countries saying, "Can you please, you guys who caused this, pay for us to sort it out? Because we got no money to start with, and it wasn't our fault. So please give us some money." So yeah, I think there's when we're talking the financial side of all this, be it enslavement, it's kind of getting very complicated. Again,
but you do raise an interesting point. Britain has, for a large part, gone around the world and said, "Yeah, that's mine, that's mine, that's mine, that's mine," and then has cleared off. You see, the large debate about the hat that's going to be placed on Charlie Boy's head containing the Koh-i-Noor, for example.
Yep.
And for those of you who don't know, the Koh-i-Noor is a large diamond that was, we went to India, we saw the diamond and went, yoink, we'll have that. And the Parthenon marbles being another fine example. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about when I say the Parthenon marbles, you may know them as the Elgin marbles. But that is because, Lord Elgin went to the Parthenon and went, "I'll have them. Bye." Da, 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 da. British Museum now has, what is effectively something nicked from the Greeks.
And the Egyptians and
the Egyptians
Indian,
and the Incas and the Mayans, you name it. It's in the British Museum. It may very well have been stolen. So if you go to the British Museum, you're probably looking at the largest collection of stolen goods anywhere. But that's very well known by them, and they're not going to come after us. But it does raise this more fundamental point of, well, where is history and where does that stop? And we then go, okay, we're drawing a line under this. We can't change all of the past, and we're going to move on. And where do we then go? Okay, we still need to keep going on and through these things. And it does remind me a bit of some of the closer history that we've got in the United Kingdom and the wider British Isles. And that is, well, how do you solve an issue like Northern Ireland? And how do you solve the problems that were caused by Britain in Ireland? And how do you solve the problems that were caused by the Troubles in Ireland? And where do you go from there? Do we start saying to the Irish as well, okay, we're going to start looking at the problems that we caused with indentured servitude of the Irish and the famine that we caused and so on? And we do need to very much look at our history, but we also need to look at our history in a way that isn't raking ourselves over our own coals and going, we were bad. We're bad. We do actually need to have some form of perspective that we need to be able to move forwards instead of just looking in the rearview mirror going, I was a bad person, I was a bad person, I was a bad person. So, Princess Emma, what do you think?
Yeah, it's funny. I was having a sort of similar conversation the other day about Hong Kong and sort of saying it's there's a strange sort of not guilty, but there's a strange feeling of like almost British responsibility for, this, we have, the colonies and we give away countries with certain, rules in place and whatever. It's strange. It's how do you value different problems, different global problems, and what should that is Rishi Sunak right to say, well, we're focusing on other stuff right now? I mean, I hesitate to say he's right about anything, but you know what I mean.
He's very much right.
He's right for sure. But and I'm not somebody who claims to have any answers in that regard. But it feels like in respect of something like, going back to the article, something like Charles saying, yes, we had a part in this, we should do an investigation, and sort of the thing that not upset me, but the thing that irritated me about Rishi Sunak was the complete disregard of even the idea of having a public apology. The British apologizing, just having the accountability is just like a small bit of awareness, and that I think would help, even if you don't get into how do we financially try and help the countries that we kicked up the backside. Even just having that little bit of responsibility is probably go a long way to fighting that, like, oh, I'm scared of looking at our history because it might upset people. It might just help a little bit.
To just jump in on the apology there, Kevin Rudd, Prime Minister of Australia, apologised for the treatment of Indigenous Australians and Torres Strait Islanders. So it can be done.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And here's the thing about history. History is not linear. At least the pursuit of history is not linear. And people remember things in weird patterns. Something will disappear and then someone will find out about it and then they go, oh, that's terrible. And you've got this sort of push and pull where on one hand, a historian will not judge history by modern moral beliefs. Of course, the religious out there watching this will say we should, because morality is objective and comes from God. But of course, that's not how it works. So we'll look at modern morals and we'll look at the past and go, oh, that was bad then. Wasn't that bad? When actually, at the time, it wasn't quite understood in that way. It's only now that we're understanding it in that way. And so now we become angry about it after ages. I've often, in my undergraduate classes, said to people, okay, so that was bad, is it? Who here has a mobile phone? And they all put their hands up and they go, do you know who made your mobile phone? The chips in it and stuff. And they look blank and I go, your grandkids are going to hate you for it. That's all I'll tell you. They're going to hate you for it. Oh, and those petrol cars you drive, they're going to hate you for that as well. And all that. So it's going to come back. There's going to be a new morality and you're suddenly going to be a dinosaur. I didn't really know. Sorry. So it's kind of, when it's sort of, we have to draw a line under it. That's a problem with history. It's not a line. You can't just go boom, because later generations will see this and go, what the hell were we doing? And try to do something. So it's a tricky one. It's a really tricky one. There's always been a tricky one about how we manage that. But I have no answers. If I did, I'd probably have a Pulitzer Prize because I'd have written something for someone by now and save the world.
I think the thing with this article in particular is this, and I don't think we've quite touched on this yet. We've all said how kind of how Charles has stepped in the right direction, but the major criticism he's got for this is that he has expressed a general sorrow, and he hasn't actually acknowledged the royals' part in the slave trade through this. And I think that's a very, very, very important kind of note to get out there, that we do. That's a major criticism against him in all this. And although he is doing a lot, and we've got to, well, we don't have to, but it would be gracious of us to say, you
British
you are
politeness.
doing the right thing. You're opening the door, and that's a good thing. But just as we've kind of said a lot throughout this episode, just kind of open it a little bit wider and put your fucking foot through and start walking through it, rather than just making these kind of really tiny gestures.
Oh yeah, Charlie.
Nothing's going to hurt you to make a bigger gesture and to do the right thing, Charlie, baby.
It took us a long time, but we got there on homosexuality. I'm sure we can get there. Struggle out an apology on slavery.
Yeah, maybe. I'm just finally, just for one last time for this also, Charlie, get your checkbook out.
Charlie, get your checkbook out. If we can chant, Charlie, get your checkbook out. Charlie, get your checkbook out.
There are a dozen historians out there who want your money, Charles, to investigate this. So put your money where your mouth is, and let's see what happens.
So on the subject of putting your money where your mouth is, you are able to join us and put your words where your mouth is instead of your money where your mouth is, and you can find us on our social media outlets. You can find the non-profit hosts regularly on the Atheist Community or Discord by going to tiny.cc/acd Discord, and on Facebook at tiny.cc/FBNP. And of course, we value your discourse with us as we value discourse here. And you can send us feedback and tell us exactly what you like and don't like by emailing us at nonprofits@atheist-community.org. Or if you want more generality of it, you can email the ACA in general at tv@atheist-community.org. And one would like to say thank you to the wonderful panelists. So, Princess Emma, please take a bow. Lord Gilliver.
Thanks.
And Viscount Firth.
I will try and curtsy. There we go. That'll do.
I have been Queen Phoebe, and this has been Season 22, Episode 18 of The Non-Profits. And now I command you all watching the premiere to go and watch The Atheist Experience live. And until next time, stay skeptical.
Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.